Hello. Right, well I haven't done a video in ages. Hopefully this will be interesting. If you don't like cars and you don't like Audis, then well, it's probably not worth watching. Anyway, some of you will probably know that I've got an Audi 90 Sport 20 valve, which I've spent a few quid on. I just thought I'd do an updated video just to show you any recent changes and give you some tips for anyone else out there that might have an Audi 90 Sport 20 valve or a coupe with the same engine, just to let you know what you might be able to do. Cool, right, so here we go. Right, so this is the car. Some of you would have probably already seen it anyway. I was actually rear-ended about a year ago by some idiot with no insurance, which was my worst nightmare of anything happening to this car because it's so rare. And well, I was absolutely gutted, as you can imagine anyone would be with their pride and joy being hit. The whole rear end, the boot lid, bumper, this quarter panel here is all new. It was completely smashed right the way up to about here on the car, all just bananaed right the way up that way. Didn't look good at all. It was pretty bad. I was quite worried, to be fair, that it was the end of the car. But luckily I have friends in the business and they all helped me out, so she's back. Right, so bodywork, apart from, as I just said, the rear end, bumper, this side here, boot lid, spoiler, that's all been resprayed. The two front wings have been resprayed, but the rest of it is original paint. So for a car that's nearly 28 years old, the paintwork on it, you can see, it's pretty damn good paintwork, really. You know, there's the odd little ding and blemish here, but there's no rust on it. There's no real obvious scratches or anything nasty. Those two holes on the front left, as you can see in the picture, they're both for air intakes, because it's completely modified intake system on this, which I'll show you in a minute. Yeah, so I've tried to keep it pretty original on the outside. I didn't want to go putting body kits and stuff on it like that because it's not really my sort of thing. I'm more into original as possible, but with a few subtle upgrades. Most of my money's gone on under the bonnet and the drivetrain system and handling. So the brakes, for example, anyone who has one of these cars or a coupe with the same size front brakes will know how hard it can be to get up-rated ones. Now these, they're 276mm discs. Standard calipers. Calipers on this car are plenty good enough to use with moderate power upgrades. But the discs and pads I would definitely recommend upgrading. These are from M-Tech and they work brilliantly. They're great on the road, they're great on the track. So yeah, I would definitely recommend those. Got those on the front and I've got those on the back as well. You can see the drilled and grooved. They're completely through drilled as well, and I know some people say that that's a risk because they can crack, but to be fair, I've never had any issues, and I do drive this car. Well, I drive it, I don't just potter about, you know, I do have fun in it, and I've been around the track a few times and they've never had any issues at all, so they're great. The exhaust system, that is custom made from a company on the Bath turning off the M4 called Infinity Exhausts. I've used them for years, they're absolutely brilliant. They can make anything you want completely custom. You can choose what tip you want, you can choose the kind of sound you're after, all sorts. They're absolutely brilliant. Now this system, hopefully you can just about see the back box, but it is completely straight through. There's no middle box, no cat, nothing at all, it's just a back box. Now you can only get away with doing that on a normally aspirated engine if you've completely uprated all the fuel system, the intake system, ECU needs to be changed, all sorts, because otherwise you'll just, it'll probably decrease power because you'll have no back pressure. So you need to make sure that you've got that one back box, so you've still got the baffles in there to give you a bit of back pressure, and then you need to follow it through with the upgrades on the engine as well. So inside, pretty standard, really. We've got some S4 seats from the same era, but I was very lucky to find these on eBay. They're in very good condition. They just make the interior look much nicer. It's a much more comfy and nice place to be. I've put S2 dials, and the main dials are also from an S2. It's a pretty easy swap. You can just change the dial faces over if you want to keep your original mileage and things like that, but it is a very, very fiddly job, so I would recommend looking up how to do it first if you are going to do that. Right, so, oh yes, sorry, my mats. I had these custom made by a company called Fat Bob's Emporium, which is a bit of a strange name, nothing to do with mats, but anyway, they made these at a very good price. You can have them any colour, I guess. I just went for red, because it sort of looks good with the car. But yeah, they did a great job, so I'm pretty pleased with that. Okay, so let's go around the front. Open up the bonnet. An S2 steering wheel on there as well. That just sort of adds to everything. Very nice. They're getting expensive now. I think when I bought mine it was about £100, but you'd be lucky to find an S2 steering wheel now for less than about 150. So they're getting quite expensive. Right, under the bonnet. So it's the original engine, but as you can see, it's not standard. I've spent quite a lot of money and time and effort on this. It is standard, is a 2.3 20 valve 5-cylinder twin cam engine. It produces around 170 horsepower. There's two options. You've got the normal one, which had a cast iron manifold and a few other bits and bobs that were slightly different. And then you've got the sport version, which had the 5-branch tubular manifold. They're both, to be fair, they're both pretty much the same. You can fit the tubular manifold to one that hasn't got it on and go from there, really. So yeah, it doesn't really matter what one you've got, but there are some slight differences. I mean, this, for example, is the idle control valve. It's in a completely different place on some of them. It's sort of over here, attached on the side. But they're both pretty much the same. Right, so we've got a 5-branch tubular manifold. It's pretty much the standard manifold, but it's just been remade. Same specifications, same shape, size and everything. I just had it remade because the old one was just starting to look a little bit old, as you can imagine, with a 28-year-old car. So they remade that at Infinity Exhausts again, did a great job, and then I've heat wrapped it. All the intake is completely uprated. There's nothing that you can buy off the shelf for these cars for an upgrade, because they're so rare. So what you'll have to do is you'll have to make your own parts. You can go to Samcone, you can go wherever you want, do silicone pipes, and just buy the different shapes and sizes and things that you need, and then go from there and make it yourself. The cold air intake, again, it's made to fit. It's not for this car, but it works and it does a great job. The air filter I'm using is Ram Air. It's a foam filter. That's a great filter. It's made in the UK. Brilliant, never let me down. Works really well, it's easy to clean, and it sounds good. But the good benefit about Ram Air as well is that they're much more good performance. That's probably the worst English ever, but you know what I mean. It's much more better performance, let's say, than just your average fabric type cone filter, because they tend to let a bit too much air in, and you just sort of, you end up losing power low down, really, because it sort of chokes itself. So if you go for a foam Ram Air one, make sure that it's shrouded. You don't want any excess heat getting in from the manifold, so make sure you've got as much heat protection as you possibly can. Again, I've made all this myself to reduce the heat soak from the manifold. This inlet manifold and rocker cover, it's not chrome, it's just extremely polished and took absolutely fucking ages. So if you're going to do it yourself, then I would recommend trying to find a second-hand manifold and rocker cover and doing it on those instead of taking yours off and doing it, because it will take you absolutely ages. So at least then you can drive the car. So engine wise, from the bottom end up is all forged and lightened. The crankshaft has been balanced. That was done by TSR Performance in Bridgewater. The rest of it I've basically put together with myself and a few friends over the last few years. The cylinder head is a stage 1. It's all ported and polished. It has got fast road cams in it, but they're not too savage, so you don't really tend to get much of a rough idle. It's rougher than standard, but it's copeable, so you don't sort of sit at traffic lights wobbling about all over the place on idle. So it's not too bad. The fuel system's all uprated. I've got a Walbro fuel pump. That just helps with the flow of fuel. What else? 10mm HT leads, iridium plugs. These HT leads were custom made. They're brilliant. These are great. I was looking for a decent set for a while, and these are really, really good. I can't remember the name though, unfortunately. I think it was something like Formula Power or something. But I found them on eBay, and they basically can make any lead for any car in any colour. So that was really, really good. And these little things turned up the other day. They're just little plastic clips to separate the HT leads. Bargain, £3 on eBay. So yeah, job done, bought those. That was all good. Right, I am missing lots of stuff, but that's the majority of things. One thing I will say, if you're going to modify these engines, there are certain things that you definitely need to do, because they really restrict the power, and you're not going to get anywhere near 200, 240 odd horsepower, which is totally possible, unless you do these things. The first thing is, underneath here, you've got the airflow meter, and the standard airflow meter is extremely restrictive on these engines. It's very, very small, and that cuts a lot of your power. So you need to go to a company called O34 Motorsports. They're in America, unfortunately, so you'll have to get it shipped if you're not in America. And they do a big MAF kit. So you get everything with that. You get the ECU chip to make it all work properly. You get all the fitments, and you get the MAF housing, which is basically a bigger, freer flowing housing made out of billet aluminium. And it just bolts straight on. But that is definitely worth doing. You will need to get the ECU upgrade though, because otherwise your ECU will have a head fit on how much air is going through there, and it just won't work. Right, yeah, so I think that's about it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you've enjoyed looking at the car. What I will do is I'll just pause the video quick and then restart it so that you can hear what it sounds like. Thanks for watching. Bye. Okay, again, thanks for watching. Goodbye.